Despite record-breaking drug busts in recent years, meth use in New Zealand more than doubled in 2024, highest levels ever recorded. With more meth, more gangs, there's calls for a Minister of Organised Crime. Would that actually work? Journalist Jared Savage is an expert on the subject and joins me now to talk about his latest piece in the Herald. Good morning, Jared. Good to see you.
Yeah, g'day, Ryan.
So what's, we have these recommendations from the Organised Crime Task Force. They've recommended a whole bunch of stuff. Do you think a Minister of Organised Crime would fix anything? Would that halve the meth use that we're seeing?
Well, I'm not sure whether it would halve the meth use that we're seeing, but certainly something needs to be done. When I first saw the recommendation around a Minister for Organised Crime, I was a little bit like, well, what would this achieve? However, on reading the reports, on reading the recommendations and the rationale why, I think it needs to be done. You've got 13 different ministerial portfolios in which each minister has a little bit of responsibility for the response to organised crime. What the expert report says is that, well, we've made all these recommendations, but essentially we need someone sitting at the very top of the chain to drive this forward. If you just made these recommendations and left it up to the different government agencies, we don't think it would be as effective. So they're calling for a minister to drive it. A very senior kind of governance panel made up of, the chief executives of the police and customs and a few others. And underneath that, essentially a very small business unit, they call it, of 30 staff to sort of identify the problems that we have, come up with solutions, and then push that up the chain so that changes can be made quite urgently.
Jared, why do we have so much more meth? Why is it doubled? Is it because it's cheaper and more accessible? Is it because people, what do you think it is?
It's a supply-driven problem. So we've had these big organised crime syndicates overseas that have come to realise that New Zealand, is a lucrative market. So a kilo of drug and a kilo of meth in Mexico or China, for example, it costs about $1,000. That kilo here is worth anywhere between $120,000 to $160,000, depending on the market. And so they are pushing more drugs here. It's driving the price down. It's becoming cheaper. And if you're a meth user, if you can buy more meth for the same amount of money, you will. And it also is probably growing the market too. So potentially more people are using more meth. And cocaine is another one. We had a tiny cocaine market, and it's still small, but it's growing. And it's simply because the drugs are cheaper, more are being used.
I almost find it laughable sometimes, and I know they're doing a good job, but when the police put out those press releases saying we have smashed a drug ring and a meth bust, and it's a street value of, I don't know, $100 million or whatever it is. The actual cost to your exporter, to your wholesaler, your middleman who's sending it here, is not going to be that, right? So they can send 10 of these parcels and they might lose a couple of $100,000. You know what I mean? They're not necessarily losing that value of the street value. What we're getting at the border still must be a tip of the iceberg in terms of what actually gets in, right?
And this is what the scary thing was about the wastewater testing, is because we've had record amounts of drugs seized in the past few years. Like when I first started reporting on this 15 years ago, a kilo of meth at a gang house was a big deal. Now the smallest street dealers would have 10 times that in the back of their car, So we're seeing huge drug busts, 100, 200, 500 kilos more. And you're absolutely right. The guys sending it from overseas, it's a small output, it's a small loss for them. That is baked into their business model. And so therefore, the fact that we're seizing all this meth and yet consumption doubled last year, showed that we had a much bigger problem than we thought we did.
Yeah.